What's up, everybody? Welcome to Copywriting Course, and Ross Hudgens, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So I really wanted Ross Hudgens on here because he runs Siege Media, and they're literally the only SEO company I recommend people to, because I get that a lot. What SEO company should I use? And I'm like, well, most companies I know don't actually have any SEO traffic themselves, and most of their clients don't. So I can't in full faith recommend that. Yours does, and for really big companies. So you handle like medium to large size companies like Zillow, Shutterfly, Airbnb, Intuit, Casper, ZipRecruiter, way more. Ross's company has been on the Inc. 5000 list for the last 4 years in a row.
Correct.
Pretty awesome. And the reason I like Ross is that he does SEO that gets results for clients, of course, but like at scale. So that seems really hard to do at scale. And most crucially, I've seen your actual work, and it's actually legit good.
Thank you.
Like that's always a problem. Yeah.
Then you check afterwards.
Exactly. We'll go into that, but like that's a crucial difference between you and a lot of companies I've seen where I see their work and I'm like, yeah, this is
Not
real
proud of
hacky
it,
stuff. So I think the last time I visited you had like 60 employees or something like that.
Yeah, we're actually 85 now.
Whoa. Okay. And you've got offices in San Diego, New York, Austin, and I assume remote all over the place now.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, man.
Today's
So
world,
thanks
yeah.
for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's hard to find good SEO people, like, as you know,
Yeah.
very secretive industry. And you were one of the few people that openly talks about it and that's good at it.
I mean, I hope the world has changed a little bit, that people are a little more open, because it definitely was a black box of shadiness for a while. But I think it's increasingly, that's less and less of that stuff is working. But I try to be transparent, and not everyone shares what they do, which still surprises me. But
Well, I mean, in a way, it's a little bit of a zero-sum game, right? Like there's only like one number one spot. Like, isn't that
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
reasons?
that's true.
So you
I
don't
mean-
want to tell your tricks sometimes, right?
Yeah, I always am of the mind, I'm like, no one's going to out execute. It's really execution, you know? Like, you put in so much work over like 10 plus years now. That's 10 years of work to build brands, design, SEO, good copy, the outreach piece, all of these like tying together. So much complexity that good luck to those people, because you got to execute. And we were even lucky to be early in that process, and you start building a moat.
I need to
So
go
um,
closer, Mike.
yeah.
Okay, so first of all, let's start off with the basics of SEO. So a lot of people come to us when they're writing content and they're saying, like, how do we rank? So we obviously have to teach people what SEO is. And ultimately, I've been doing this for 20 plus years before it was called SEO. And it's kind of like, it's down to this like half sentence. It's you make really good content and get lots of links and attention to it. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, well, our tagline for our show on YouTube is content and links for that reason.
Oh,
It's definitely not it, but that's a very basic. If you could do those two things pretty well, you're a lot of the way there.
You've shortened it down to 3 words. That's
Yeah,
amazing. So, I mean, there's a lot of people, they read a lot of these blogs and stuff. And of course, there's like a bazillion like ranking factors. You know,
Right.
everyone's like, Google has like 3,000 ranking factors. There's like meta tags, description tags, title tags, page speed, read time, mobile friendliness, all that crap. Is there like a 90-10 rule where it's like 90% of the results come from like 10% of the effort?
I hear that sometimes. I do think with search, you can have a high hit rate if you're executing pretty well. There's definitely something to, if your title tag is completely off, you're just not going to rank. But I do think with, like, if you have quality content and I think one thing people very often get wrong is the user intent of a search. So if you're searching for something like copywriting software or you want to rank for best copywriting software and you're someone who sells that, most people actually want a roundup from a unbiased third party like probably Siege, because we don't sell a copywriting software. But people will not understand that, and they just will have no chance of ranking. So if they have quality content that solves and they can understand that and solve for that, I feel like that carries a lot of the weight, and you can tweak a lot of those other smaller things over time.
But those things, like usually people's title tags and stuff are not like way off, right? Like if you have a standard WordPress install and you say copywriting software, you make that as the title, and you write a roundup of the 10 best copywriting softwares or whatever.
Right.
Like out of the box, I feel like almost everything is done, right? SEO wise, like technically.
Yeah, in a way, you're right. It's really not a differentiating factor. But there are people that are good at like optimizing for click-through rate and being more efficient from that way. But it's not going to be a major win for you. But there are some things like if I see your site, I trust you, I'm more likely to click you from a click-through rate standpoint because I recognize that brand. If I'm searching for car insurance and I see Geico, that's technically in the title tag, and that helps them rank, if that makes sense. And it's going to be a factor towards that.
I mean, I remember reading Google's originally PageRank algorithm back in the, like Sergey Brin and his co-founder were doing that, Larry Page. And it was brilliantly simple how they just basically used links to see who was who on the internet. And this is in, I don't know, 1995 or something along those lines. I think it's still relatively similar. There are more ranking factors, like they kind of have Google Analytics installed everywhere. So they know that, okay, this person is reading much longer on this page versus that page. Those are factors, but if you get a ton of links across the web pointing to copywriting software, even if your article is labeled abcdefg.html, you might link if everyone's pointing there, right?
Yeah, it's very possible. I guess the consideration set is people will take that advice and then get like a ton of spammy links back to them. And Google is now better at solving for that messy middle of knowing when people are doing that.
Oh, but that was their big innovation back in the day. That they knew your reputation based up, because like if you have some spammy site that no one else is linking to, then
exactly. But some people are faking that. They understand how to throw up fake websites and fake blogs in order to recreate PageRank, and that's the black box we talked about earlier.
I mean, I used to use like Alta Vista back in the day, right? like that kind of like dog pile. Remember?
I know. That's pre me actually. I feel like I'm old school.
Yeah, I mean, I used to use those types of things, and then Google came along and kind of eliminated a lot of the stuff. Because if you wanted to rank number one on dogpile.com back in the day for copywriting software, you just write copywriting software, copywriting software, copywriting software. And so long as you have more mentions in the meta tag or the page, like you won. It was that simple.
Yeah, that was there's a lot of opportunity in that time.
But also search engines were so bad that like no one
you
really
could manipulate the heck out of.
Oh, well, you wouldn't even use them as much because they were just garbage.
Just manipulated.
Yeah,
I missed that period, that the sweet days where a lot of money was.
But here's the one thing I tell people when they're focusing on these little tactics. It's like, and I'm sure you see this all the time. Every time you figure out some little loophole that like, oh, Google hasn't figured this out, it's just count down until like that's closed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really feel we don't think that way. It's really like improve the quality of your website, improve the quality of the content on a per page basis. And yeah, there's like little hacks and things like that, but it's not that interesting to me anymore, honestly, because of Google just getting smarter and smarter. And I used to be that guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like pure white hat person. I bought a ton of links 10 years ago. yeah. But now just doesn't feel like the right thing to do.
Well, it also, I don't think it works. Also, it could kind of backfire against you too.
It definitely can. I know there are people that are doing it effectively, but going back to like the scale thing, I think about our team. Just operationally, someone not making a mistake at our size, buying links and putting our client brands at risk, especially when you're like playing with bigger brands. You don't want to be buying links for a public company because you get them penalized. Good luck paying back that lawsuit kind of thing. It's not a good time.
I try to think of sites that I like to read, something like Wait But Why, like, that site. They write.
I haven't seen that actually.
It's not about anything specifically, but they'll write a really in-depth article about Elon Musk or Starlink or something along the lines that takes them months to make.
Right.
And because they spent so much time just focusing on that content, they rank number one for all those things. And they spend literally no time doing SEO and stuff. It's just there's that much attention going to that article and links that they rank number one. Like I like that. And forever they will rank number one for a long period of time because they focused on the content, not the little hacky little things here and there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's a ton of sites like that just walk into those efforts and reap the rewards of it. And a lot of those sites will actually, SEOs will identify them and they'll go out and buy those sites because they have so many links and they're not paying attention to what power they have. They don't realize it. And then they can go use that for their own deceiving or their own traffic in more monetized ways. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting distinction. So I do copywriting, like we've always talked about. It's a little bit more salesy, like 70% content, 30% sales. And then you do more content marketing. And we've had this discussion before that I described copywriting. And you're like, I mean, isn't that content marketing? I'm like, whatever. Like, what do you just think those two are different?
I mean, I think, I'd be definitely curious to hear your opinion on this, but I would almost define it as copywriting is like almost more dense as compared to content marketing. Like I think of copywriting is like you're so in the depth over every single word, and more so is on bottom funnel pages, I would say as well. Like the most valuable pages, the landing pages on your website, I feel like that's copywriting more as compared to a 4,000 word blog post. But there's also some contradictions of that where I see a Brian Dean and you read one of his posts and you feel like he is like he's thought deeply about every single sentence and word on his site. And that's commendable. I don't know that in every context that is necessary, but that's kind of how I think about it. Is like I see copywriting as more dense on a per word basis and more valuable on a per word basis, and content marketing still has elements of that, but a little less. But I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think content marketing is strictly that you're putting stuff out in the ether on a social network or on a website, and that you're trying to you're like a light trying to attract flies to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So you're like, hey, come click on me. And then like 1% of those people might subscribe to you or whatever percentage. And then perhaps in the future they'll buy. Right. That's content marketing. So stuff you create, put out there, and then people come to it. I think copywriting is often outreaching to other people. So like cold emails.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about that because I know you do that a lot. Cold emails, ads, stuff like that people aren't necessarily coming to you for that. And also I think copywriting is more in terms of getting them to take some specific action.
Okay.
So buying something is usually the ultimate goal of copywriting.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas just like general content marketing, I guess, is kind of like brand awareness and stuff sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, we try to use like, we talk about I know we have that in common, the AIDA formula. Like we try to train our team to use that for even long form blog posts. Like those first couple sentences are hyper critical to keep someone's attention. And then you want to have them eventually take action, even on a top funnel piece. And how do you go about getting them to do that? Obviously it's a lot longer of a process, but I think there are some definitely overlap in some ways.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So speaking of AIDA, AIDA's attention, interest, desire, action, this common copywriting like marketing formula. I know y'all use it heavily for outreach. So I think half the battle of your company is just reaching out to other places and being like, hey, we made this great piece of content. Will y'all link it or look at it? Right. And so I'm assuming y'all send out tons of cold emails.
A good number, yes. I wouldn't. Tons makes it sound like a spam machine, but we send a good number of emails. Yeah.
So it's like, are they very personalized, or this may be some of the secret sauce?
No. I would be contradicting myself with this. They're very custom, tailored, personalized. So we see that someone has shared something similar to what we're pitching them, and so if we see they've shared a third-party copywriting checklist, we pitch them a copywriting checklist, or maybe it's like a copywriting template or copywriting formula download or printable or something like that. That's relevant. They shared another third-party source about copywriting. We know they have high intent to share ours. So that's not that spammy because they're open to these third-party pitches. And that's how we kind of identify and pitch people.
Oh, that's interesting that so you're targeting them like that. I've just seen so many people that just like have this giant list and they'll just send out like hundreds of emails a day. I actually had someone do that once, and like day 2, I was like, dude, you got to stop this. This is literally just spamming people.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to the brand risk point of view. Even not buying links, if we were representing a big brand and pitching 500 people a spammy email, that could eventually end up in The Verge or something. I've seen there are examples of SEOs getting outed for shitty spammy outreach all the time. More so buying links, but yeah, it's not. In general, I want to do good marketing, and I don't want to do something that represents us or our clients poorly.
This is, I don't know if you actually know this number, but what percentage of these emails that you reach out to people actually get read or opened? Do you have stats or anything?
Yeah. In terms of reply rate, a good reply rate is in the 20% range.
Replies?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So conversion rate will be 5 to 8-ish%. Good 8. We've had a higher and up in the 10% range. Again, it comes down to very custom tailored emails. So I'm sure in some instances, maybe we could get more outcomes if we sent 200 more spammy emails, but there's a cost benefit equation to that.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so you're really doing your research on who you're sending something
Exactly.
to.
It's very tailored. We have very high intent when we're pitching them, or we don't pitch them.
So are you spending more time figuring out who to send the email to rather than just writing the email? Because the email's probably super short.
Prospecting is definitely high intensity. So we spend around 60, we scope around 16 hours to send 100-ish emails.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. So y'all, okay. That's serious.
Yeah. And we're working off a templated email that's customized to a degree, around 20% of it, but it's high prospecting. And I've heard of some companies like us who will like silo those activities, but something about just prospecting on the fly and having the context of Neville has shared copywriting resources like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the site and looking at it quickly. It just makes sense to us to connect those.
Wow. Now, I know we've talked about Ada, and I've seen the emails y'all make, and they're really good and personal and sent from personal addresses and stuff like that. What kind of emails have you noticed work best? Like the short ones, the medium ones, the really long ones?
We really go short consistently. There's some tests that show longer ones work, but just for the cold pitches where we're coming at you without much previous context and you just got to grab your attention quickly, just a very quick one paragraph, link, call to action, subject line that mentions their name and then what they're going to get. That's been pretty effective for us over time. And it's hard to get statistical significance in what we do because we talked about we send around 100 emails. So it's difficult to truly A/B test that. But so in some ways we're going off instinct, but it's worked over time.
Wow. I mean, we redo so many emails for companies and get to see the results. And it's like every single time the shortest email wins.
Yeah, I'd be curious
almost
to know,
every single time.
Is there almost like is that getting more and more so the case?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, we're talking specifically cold emails, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For specifically cold emails, the ultra short ones. And get this. I mean, I'm talking, so there's like short emails, what we were thinking about, like one paragraph of text. Then there's like the micro email where it's like 9 words or less. So I remember Eamon, and here's the thing, it's a little bit harder to do sometimes. So for you to ask for a link, I think you have to have a little, maybe about
more
a paragraph.
Context.
Yeah, there has to be more context as you're talking about them. You've seen their stuff. There's more stuff to jam in there. I remember Eamon from AppSumo, he's the CEO of AppSumo. Yeah. He would send this email to, let's say, a software company that they like to promote a deal. If they want to do a deal with them, he'd reach out just with Eamon@sumo.com or something. And it would say, hey, we want to promote you to our 750,000 people. Good? Eamon. No phone number, no like Calendly link, no nothing. And of course, like they'd always respond back like, hell yeah, of course.
Well, that's the ultimate and attention right there. He grabs it immediately. And he had the credibility to pull that off.
Exactly. Like they probably already knew who AppSumo was.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot going behind the scenes. So not everyone can pull that off, but if you could do a micro email like that, I mean, sometimes that works really, really well.
Yeah, and we like where it's possible. We've done it less and less because we have existing relationships, so we don't want to be pitching cold if we don't have to. But if you're pitching from @airbnb.com, that's kind of a similar instance where you will get better open rates from airbnb.com than siegemedia.com.
I think I once got like a pitch from someone at a HubSpot or some very high ranking site, and they're like, "Want to do a collab?" ? And I was like, that's a great email because I know that it's from like a big company, and of course I want that link. So I was like, absolutely, yeah.
Just
and it totally worked.
Effort.
Yeah. I almost view some of those emails. Tell me if this is the same way you view it, as like a cold email. I'm like, okay, forget what's in it, forget the Ada formula. I almost view it as like a tap on the shoulder to like 100 people that you're sending to. It's like, hey, are you interested? You interested? Just, hey.
Yeah.
It's not like a, hey, check this out. Give me 10 minutes of your time. Blah, blah, blah. It's a real just tap on the shoulder. Is
see if they turn around, basically.
Yeah. Because some of them will be instantly interested. Most probably won't. And some are just never going to talk to you.
And it's an important time investment equation where you don't want to be giving an essay to someone who's not going to turn around when you tap them on the shoulder.
Yep. Let's go into the content side. So right now we're talking about outreach, but then you're linking them and being like, hey, you want to link this thing, X, whatever it is, a email template, a blog post, a download, something like that.
Right.
Okay. So making good stuff, making good content is hard. Like
Yes.
it's really hard, especially as everyone's caught onto the jig that like, oh, organic search is awesome, right?
Yes.
It's like you get these forever returns. So the level has increased. It's like this arms race to make something better.
For sure.
So how are you doing this with like so many different clients? You've got like 85 people working with you. Like, how are you doing this at scale? There's only a handful of amazing places. Like I know like NerdWallet, HubSpot that do content at scale really well, where the content's actually like pretty good. Like you actually read it and you're like, yeah, that's a pretty good post.
Yeah.
Like how long does it take you to write like one piece of content like that?
So, I mean, we start off at a minimum of 18 hours dedicated per post.
Wow.
We rarely will even use that interval of time. We'll actually do 36 hours on average is the low end, where we call it's like keyword driven posts where distribution is built in via search volume, but we're not doing any outreach based on the market. So 36 hours, and that's blended time between designers, writers, copy editor, manager who's like looking over it. So long story, yeah, at least a week generally. And that's when you have multiple skill sets involved to get to depth.
So I mean, you're talking about there's like SEO people, planning people, writing people, images people, video people, technical people, uploading it to an actual website, animation people, people doing the promotion. Like how many people are involved in like a single piece of content?
It can be as high as 10 people, probably not on a 36-hour post, to be fair. In that one, it's more like 2 people or 4 on average, but you'll have soft touches from other people. If you have something that's interactive, the copy editing side definitely can get upwards of 10. In terms of the mini touch points of the manager, the strategy people, we ideate with as a group. So we're getting to the best idea as a group of like 5 and 6. And yeah, it compounds. And that is one of the things we're selling is like you're getting 10 people per piece of content, not just one writer you can get off Upwork.
This is what I want people to know, that like sometimes when people are like, oh, but HubSpot just puts out a blog post. I'm like, no, there's like a lot of people, like well-paid people, trained people, good people around the world working on this one, what you consider like tiny little blog post.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a component we're increasingly thinking about, and I don't think many people spend as much time and effort on this, is the UX design of their blog. I know HubSpot has a very elegant, fast-loading, great user experience on their content framework that allows them to accomplish scale because they might not need as much design on a per-post basis because that framework looks so good. And that might cost them $50,000 to execute and design well and be on brand. But once that cost is done, now they have 3,000 posts that they can put in that framework and rank for everything, if that makes sense. As compared to like Joe Schmo blogger who just does a WordPress install, maybe throws his logo on there, but it still loads slowly. The sidebar doesn't look great. It doesn't look custom, etc.
Yeah, that UX component of it is really, really important. I learned CSS to kind of like update my blog, and I know it to like a degree.
Right.
And it really helps just with the readability. I actually just recently put out a request to get even more help with it. But the good blogs out there, I mean, they've got like top end designers. Thinking about the typography, the spacing, everything. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and if you think about, I use the same word, I feel like phrase a lot. It's like the sunk cost differentiator. It's like we're here in a set that's like very nice, and that not many people are going to be willing to invest in that in terms of a set and things like that. But same with the UX design. Some people are willing to spend $30,000 on their UX design. Some people are only willing to spend $3,000, but that time to ROI will come a lot faster. And sometimes it won't come at all if you're only spending $3,000.
Damn. Well, so speaking of like kind of a little more technical side, do you use any tools for SEO? There's a lot of SEO tool talk and everything. What's your stack?
Pretty boring. I love Ahrefs. Ahrefs is like the go-to, honestly. We also use Moz to find some additional links. There was a recent study that actually showed they do apparently the best job in terms of pure link discovery. That's good for us in the agency's standpoint where we want to show the client everything we did. If you're in-house, it might not be as important to find every single link that exists. So maybe you could just use Ahrefs for your keyword research, competitive research, link research, all those good things. We use SEMrush too as just another competitive research backup plan. Hunter for email finding. BuzzStream is kind of our CRM for outreach, digital PR. So our team all does database management within that. And I recommend that, especially if you're trying to accomplish scale and have lots of people. You don't want to be emailing HubSpot 5 times from your Siege Media accounts, or they'll quickly blacklist you.
Yeah. So that sounds like a pretty simple like technology stack. It's not that complex. I mean, I remember asking you that question before, and you just said like, I guess just Ahrefs.
Yeah, I mean that's really 90% of the heavy lifting. But BuzzStream is a huge component as well in terms of database management for outreach.
Nice. Ahrefs like the standard now. Shout out Tim Sulo. Hey.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. So one interesting thing we always talk about, we have like a members forum where we help people redo their content and stuff. And of course, I'll screen share my Ahrefs screen, and they're like, "Oh, how do I get that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's pretty pricey."
Yeah.
So it makes sense for me to buy it. I don't know if it makes sense for you to buy it. So what I've always showed them is this other free SEO tool. And it's completely free. It's called Google. And
Nice.
dude, Google is so cool.
pretty
So
good, yeah.
so type in whatever term you want. I don't know, copywriting software, whatever you want. We're just using that example. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and it shows you all the results. And now it'll often show you the similar searches like right in the top.
Yeah.
It's like you can find the user intent by just looking at the Google results.
For sure. Yeah, especially for the big terms. If you can use, depends on your sophistication, but if you can understand the short tail keyword like copywriting software, you probably can infer what the big term is. And maybe as a tip for copywriters who are searching, if you search something that feels like the main way someone might search something like copywriting tools, and then you look at the search and you see all the titles are saying something that not exactly copywriting tools, but something slightly different, that probably means that is probably the biggest keyword or term, and maybe lean into that instead. So like an example of that might be like copywriting software 2020 or like, I don't know better, like copywriting.
I know, like if you type in the local result, like plumbers,
right?
It's not going to be like how to become a plumber. It's going to be like plumbers Austin, plumbers San Diego, plumbers New York.
So that's the hint.
So you're just like, oh, they're going for local results. People are looking. This user intent is looking for a specific plumber in a specific geographic location.
Right. Exactly.
So you instantly know that, and that is a free tool called Google. You just scroll to the bottom, and it shows 10 different results that are the most common after that.
Yeah, and we use that hugely. I talked about BuzzStream, but for our prospecting, almost all of that is through Google. Our theory, and I think is, I don't want to call it fact, but basically fact, if you're finding the sites that link to you through Google, pretty good chance Google values those websites. So in turn, they should value those links from those websites if you can get links from them. So we do all our prospecting for people to link to us via Google. Almost all of it.
How long does it typically take to rank something? I know it's a newbie question, but I'll just pose it to you because I'm sure your clients ask you that sometimes.
As a very general ballpark, if you're a brand new website and it's a competitive industry, if you invest heavily, 12 months, I think it's feasible. If you're really, really good from a strategic standpoint. If you have existing authority, let's say your DR, in most spaces, let's say your domain ranking is Hrefs number, domain authority, Moz's number. In the 50-ish range, you probably can, if you're sophisticated in your strategy, 6 months, I think very feasibly, you can get some results if you're doing things correctly. From that, you're not so far behind, but you're behind. I think that's feasible. So most often we're saying 6 months. You'll start seeing the anchor move around months 3 to 4, and then it accelerates. I will normally say like you'll see the hockey stick grow month 6 plus for that kind of client. And we do have those existing clients that are 6 month range where you really see that growth.
Wow. So I mean, content marketing clearly kind of a commitment.
Yeah, for sure. And there's spaces like if you're trying to start from scratch in insurance, you're not going to rank for car insurance, home insurance, life insurance. That could be 2 years.
Sweet. So, okay.
Plus.
So clearly content marketing is kind of a bit of a commitment, right? And I think there's one secret thing of all there's a lot of these like underground SEOs that people don't know. They're not very public about their stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know some people are like killing it and like they've got 0 Twitter followers. They don't talk about anything.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. And they're really good, right? Really great content. No, and in weird industries.
Yeah, they don't want to be
random
public.
industries. Yeah. Not like best software, best VPNs or anything like that. They're talking about like real straight, like Traeger grill reviews or something like that. Like,
yeah, I think of Pat Flynn. I haven't followed him as much recently, but he had like a truck website. I remember he like publicly talked about it, but he immediately put a bullseye on his stomach of every single SEO or affiliate saw, oh, this was a lucrative niche for like something random, and then he saw a ton of copycat stuff pop up. So there's real danger to speaking about anything.
Oh,
like that.
I mean, I started doing e-commerce, and that was my main strategy for getting people. I had a rave company, and I would talk about it openly, stupidly when I was like in college. But oh man, it's so easy to rank for these things. And of course, so my site was called House of Rave, and then you hear like homeofrave.com pop up or something like that. Yeah, you check, and the guy would you check your email, like he did, like have emailed you before and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like they know what's up. But redoing and improving content seems to be a similar thread through all those people. So I know a lot of SEOs, and like literally 80% of their job, I'd say, is just kind of going and redoing articles, which sounds boring as whatever, but it is kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah, or killing content. I think that's increasingly, as we're getting more mature, as you kind of talked on, one of the things we do for some clients who come in is content audits. You look at them and you look at what kind of pages have no traffic or no links that are old and they have no other value to you. You could, in many instances, just 404 of those pages and your other pages will lift because those aren't doing anything for you. And it's kind of like an equation of links against the number of pages on your site. But updating is for sure an equation too. Like one of the things we recommend is looking at the search results. And if you see everything has been updated, again, we keep talking copywriting software, if the dates all say in the last month, you should aim to be in the top 25 percentile of that to be competitive, because users probably are showing, hey, I want modern copywriting software. I'm more likely to click you because you clearly are more likely to have the most updated content. But there are spaces like how to garden or something. You'll see articles that are like the spread on the search result is like 4 years. So you don't necessarily need to update all day and all night. That doesn't hurt to be modern, but it's not as important as like iPhone 12 reviews or something like that, which will probably be 24 hours or less.
And you want to, what are your thoughts on the current trend of like modern gardening techniques, updated 2020?
Spammy is, I mean, you can typically tell depending on.
Well, here's the thing. It kind of works, right?
It depends on the space. I think Google is kind of showing you that it might not in some of those instances. And there is a brand piece of that equation. I market to marketers. So if I use that technique, I'm going to turn off enterprise customers by doing that. I'm not saying the gardeners will do that. It might be effective there, but there's just something, if you land on that page, and I've had that happen, you land and you actually see there's some shears that are outdated or something, or the old product, you lose brand or like affinity for that company. So use that sparingly. I think people overuse that. And I think that's increasingly the recommendation now is you shouldn't even like go and just quickly update the date. You need to do full, like I call it a quality assurance sweep. Like what really deeply look at this, make real changes in order to justify changing that date. Because Google is also getting smarter. I've seen sites that change the date like almost programmatically, and more of those sites are just getting dinged. And
it seems like a tactic that'll go away.
Yeah,
at some
I think
point.
it already kind of has, honestly. There was a phase where it was super abused. I remember Viper Chill even wrote an article about it, I'm pretty sure.
Shout out to Glenn.
Yeah, and now I don't think you see it as often where literally the top 10 results are like literally all past 24 hours.
Because I was seeing it for a short period of time where like everything was like updated 2020, updated mid 2020, updated post pandemic, all that kind of stuff. Some of that stuff I actually think like maybe could work a little bit but for the most part, it seems like a tactic that will get axed. I remember the whole clickbait phase we went through in 2012, 13 of like, you will best farming trick. You won't believe what he does, ... It's very grabby, but you do not see those anymore because they are essentially eliminated from any sort of search results, social or organic results.
Yeah, agreed.
It's gone.
That's kind of my default with any strategy is if it feels dirty, don't do it. Like today, you see people with these like FAQ things under search results that to me don't make sense in context long-term for those search results to just have a random people also ask question thing. You might have seen it, but I don't personally recommend that to clients because it doesn't actually make sense. It shows up, but it doesn't make sense. So I have concerns about the long-term viability.
One thing I always tell people is just like, look, SEO, like the technical side of it is to help the computer. So if you're going for copywriting software, if your thing is called, ross.com/copywriting-software, that helps Google say, okay, we're pretty sure this is about copywriting software. And then if your title says that in there too, they'll be like, okay, we're really almost sure that this is about copywriting software. But that stuff is for the computer. That stuff is for robots. The actual content should be for humans. If humans consume your content really well, then the robot will be happy. Right?
Yes, agreed. Yeah. And increasingly, you can't solve. Those are just like the very basic things, and it's solving for the humans is the hard part.
So going back to the redoing and improving content topic, is that something y'all do frequently? Like, is there like a period of time, like after 12 months, you're like, okay, we got to go and re-update it or anything?
Yeah, kind of going back to, we have an article on our website I call it Freshness Distance. It's like, what is the distance on the search result between those dates? So that should tell you how often you need to update something. So you don't want to just to update it, but if you're feeling outdated on that search result, that's one way of doing that. We definitely do it for old posts, especially for ones that are highly, highly effective for us and we know they're competitive. We'll preemptively say, let's do a refresh of this article, maybe get new stats, new data. So we will do that probably in the 12 months plus range for a campaign. We'll start thinking about refreshes.
So I recently changed my domain from Copywriting Course with K's, which I loved, but for certain reasons we had to get rid of, to Copywriting Course with C's. Whenever you start saying stuff like the Copywriting Course community and they're all with K's, you can imagine where this goes. It gets a little bit dicey. Yeah, and it's actually been a problem. So anyways, we changed domains. So I'm not really worried about, we had good SEO before and then we kind of had to like let that trail off while we made the domain change. Have you ever had, because you do this at scale, is there a fun way to go redo content? Have you ever thought about that? Because it sounds like a very boring task sometimes.
My idea of fun these days is the UX redesign of the whole site. It's not like on the per page basis. It's like, how can we blanket 10x, maybe 10x is a strong word, but like 5x improve what this site is doing. So on a per post basis, it's a little harder. Of course, you have so many illustrations to things like that. So if you updated your blog design as well and did something different, you'd probably have to wholesale go change everything. So that actually stops a lot of people from ever doing redesigns. But I don't have a great answer for you there other than that.
Well, what about this? I thought it'd be fun. I was going to think about, so I like this idea of like collaborative copy. Okay. We've done a lot of surveys on the site. So we're putting up a bunch of freeway signs right now in San Francisco for a guy's gym. Okay. Like, yeah, we're just like, this would be a fun experiment. So we like outsource that to the crowd to see what he should say on the signs, right?
Okay.
So it was just more fun to involve other people, the mind of the crowd rather than just a couple of us. So I was just like, I wonder if there's a way to do like collaborative copy for going through each post and like updating, or like a core content month review. I don't know. I was trying to make it fun, but it just sounds like y'all do this after 12 months. No,
I think those are good strategies at scale for our clients. It's a little more difficult. Mm-hmm. But like in your situation, I do love the strategy of including people socially and then changing it. That's a built-in distribution network. I see it all the time where people will like run a survey. We'd love to include your opinions on this post on social. Some influencers see that, they contribute, then you update the post. You can now reach out to those people. It's built-in distribution mechanism that's very simple and effective, super effective. Yeah. And it's not like spammy ego bait, like I was the best copywriter. It's you contributed to this post in a useful way.
Yeah. I had Nomadic Matt in here. He runs like a huge travel site. And he was talking, they have like 2,000 plus posts. And for travel, you definitely need to be updating all the time because like hostels go in and out of business all the time. And
today's world,
especially with what's going on in the world
Everything's
today.
Outdated, bro.
So I remember I got like almost like anxiety thinking about updating 2,000 posts about travel. I was like, oh my God, you have to do this? He's like, 80% of our time spent writing is just updating posts.
Yeah, I mean, at certain thresholds too, some verticals, there's only 200 posts. Like I think of one thing that comes to top of mind is referral software. It's like this company, I forget the name of it actually, but basically they made it easier for people to refer that business, almost like an affiliate thing for businesses, but there's only so many topics around referral software. It's like referral marketing ideas, referral marketing.
How to do referral
marketing. There's like 20. So you want to make those absolutely amazing. And that was the strategy, was like, go super big, make this defensible, and then just update those. But if you're in wedding, you're the knot, there's thousands of posts. It might be a little harder, but at least those are evergreen. So it might be a little more over time. You got to make those changes.
Cool. So one interesting thing is the content. I'm sure you heard the term content mill. Content mill just means like a place that just cranks out content. So we did this experiment a long time ago, a couple of years ago, where we got a bunch of people on Fiverr to write articles for $5 a piece on like every writing topic under the sun. And we openly published this. We're just like, yo, this site's going to get real spammy for a second. And so we got all these people to do it at scale. I wasn't involved in any of them. I didn't edit any of them. I didn't do anything. They were all uploaded automatically. So we had 50 posts in like what we called a glossary, right? And in the first like 6 weeks or something, nothing happened at all. And I was like, well, I just wasted several $100s. You know, that was nothing. But then 2 years later, you find these like random articles that just start peaking and getting a lot of traffic out of nowhere. They're not necessarily the most related, so it's not like they like bring in tons of business, but they do bring in some search traffic. What are your thoughts on these content mills and playing that game of like put out 150 posts, maybe 2 will hit?
It's high risk because it can bring down the rest of the site in a way. Like those other things are weighing against other elements, so that could work. But if you have a very lucrative other page, you're putting that at risk trying to get 2 winners there. I think you could throw up a hypothetical site and do that and test it, and maybe you make some money off of AdSense or something like that around certain topical silos. And I think I've heard of some of those behind the scenes people doing that in terms of like throwing up a shitty site on certain topics, seeing what sticks and what sort of starts ranking, and then double down on that. That's not a terrible strategy. I do think today Google's smarter, and if you're just trying to wing ranking for something without topical expertise, good luck long term.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Some of those things like kind of panned out a little bit, and we kept those posts, but overall it just felt like a weird strategy to like do. It felt like a little bit gaming the system.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think that is almost a way of probably not. It is luck. It's almost like luck, spray and pray, and you happen to hit on something low competition is most likely what's happening there. That happens all the time with random websites. You hear the stories. Oh, I rank for this stupid, completely non-relevant keyword that is like porn related. It's probably you just hit on some non-competitive thing, which probably isn't that, but you hit on that and then it starts ranking. And that's just probably pure luck. But that is one outcome that can happen when you have an authoritative site.
Well, we also found that the articles that ranked really well is what we call, I guess, like high school content. It's like high school kids looking up like, what is a glossary or what is a thesaurus? So like random little search terms like that they get traffic, but it's just like ultimately it doesn't bring us any business or the right audience. So it's kind of like, I'm not sure if that's even really worth it.
Which sounds exactly that. That sounds because no one monetized it, can really monetize it most likely. That's probably why it's not competitive. That's why you rank for it. It's not universally true, but more often than not.
Yeah, theoretically, ultimately, Google will probably just answer their question of like, what is this? It's like a dictionary question. So that'll.
Yeah, they can. There are some. One thing we didn't touch on that we've been doing more of recently is like those things can attract links over time, depending on the concept. Probably in elementary school stuff, not as much. But if you're like in cybersecurity and it's a what is blank topic, people will grab that definition and link to it on their website. So increasingly, we're trying to show up in searches like that, where someone might grab a data point like, what is the cost to remodel my kitchen? It's $20,000. They'll find the reference point linked to you. So you as an engine could find that and aim to rank for that, and that could power your site from a link standpoint. So that's more and more what we're doing today. Like, what is the ideal blog post length? That would be something maybe you already have that article, but you have the authority to rank on, probably could attract like 300, 400 links over time just from someone randomly finding that in the quick answer and linking to you.
So it's not the best strategy, but it's a strategy.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a thing. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, I will say there is something about just like spending a lot of time on one great piece of work that I think you just naturally feel proud of.
Yeah.
that's actually helpful. And I've noticed like one good blog post can return for like 5 years. And I'm talking like actual clients that you want, get signups, emails, subscribes, your social channels. All it's like one good blog post can really go a hell of a long way. So I prefer to like work on that kind of stuff because it's just more interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, in evergreen for sure. We go. I agree with that. We're generally thinking it's okay if you got to update stuff, but with that in mind, that you're going to build towards a hero piece.
So
it's always a good thing to do.
Let's switch gears a little bit to talk about social media. So SEO for the longest time, especially in the early days of the internet, like you go to google.com, type in whatever you want, look at the first results, click that. That's how you discovered things. Now there are these things called, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, all that kind of stuff that it's almost like the content finds you. Like I'll open up Instagram or TikTok or something like that and just mindlessly scroll and see something and be like, oh, what's that website? Like it's almost like a new form of discovery. What do you think of the influence of that? Does it take away from Google or is it all related?
Yeah, and that's an interesting observation. I almost wonder if that's like a new way of like trivia collection. It's like we're getting hit with like just miscellaneous facts that we might have other cared to Google and discover. And maybe in some ways it replaced a future action because we thought of it in some way. But I bet it wouldn't, like net, you're still going to have that time and searches might go up for some of those things. But that it is interesting to think about that. But one of the goals is SEO is like, things that probably have high search volume, if you randomly find that on Twitter and you're interested in, again, copywriting about the ideal blog post length, you probably stop and you like that. You might even link to it. And that's going to help your SEO kind of the side of the equation. So like connecting those things is worth, like if I know someone searches for it and I have an interested social media audience, probably a good chance they're going to like that when I share it on social too.
It used to be kind of like, remember social media when it first came out was like, the joke was like, sharing what you had for breakfast. Yeah. And then people realized, wait a second, you can communicate a thought to potentially the whole world right away for free. Like, this is a pretty cool thing. So then, of course, like, marketers kind of ruin it. Gary Vaynerchuk quote, marketers ruin everything. Of like, they start posting their business stuff and offers and everything on there. But the thing is, it works. People sell stuff on Instagram. People do make a lot of money on TikTok. People make a lot of money on YouTube. So, I almost see it like if you have a really good article, you kind of break it up into a bunch of different social pieces, right? So your best copywriting software thing, you could actually break that up into a slideshow on Instagram or make it a tweet or something like that. It's almost like a natural extension of that content, and it's got like there's the main piece of content and the little fingerlings going out there on all the different social networks.
And Gary, I think he calls that, I don't know if he debuted that model, but called like, I think it's the Gary Vaynerchuk content model or something. He has a great deck. Basically, he makes one hero piece of content and he'll get like 300 pieces of content from that hero piece.
Oh yeah, he definitely, like, I don't know if he started it, but he was definitely one of the first one to kind of like coin
to market it
and talk about it.
Yeah,
and I know that deck that you're talking about. It's fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that something y'all do with content now?
We do. We haven't pushed it as hard. I think this is one of those interesting pushes and pulls where it depends on how deep you go on some things. I find I even get weird anxiety as a social media marketer if I overshare. Like, you feel the second thing dwindle in the terms of the engagement you get. Mm-hmm. So if I'm like sharing a second piece of the same content, maybe this is just me overthinking it. You get less engagement, and then I'm like, is this going to eventually dwindle to zero because I'm now sharing something that's less effective? I think in his case, if he's sharing a keynote that got like 400,000 views, that makes sense. But there's probably levels of like, my content is getting 1,000 very targeted B2B viewers. That doesn't cut up very nicely down to 20, if that makes sense. Like, people are going to stop caring as much, while his super epic piece, probably the proof is in the pudding that people will care, and more segments of the market will care about pieces of that.
Also, like if someone's searching for a specific thing, the user intent is very high. Whereas they see it as a random feed while they're, sitting on the toilet.
Right.
It's just like not as, they're not as engaged. Like
yeah.
they'll see it, they'll like it maybe, but the intent, I don't know, isn't all that strong.
Yeah, that's true.
But the cool part is it's kind of free exposure, which is interesting. So for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, I actually think, I don't know if I probably should check, and maybe this is why this is top of mind as well. I think our video, I cut one piece up of it, a few pieces up for it, and it did rank for some random long tail keywords. So I stopped doing it as much, but are you doing that?
I remember we did a long form interview on Siege Media, and then you cut it up, and there was a section called ADA formula.
Yeah.
And I had a video on ADA formula, but yours was filmed in much better quality. And so I actually linked that on an ADA post. And
I think it ranks on Google for ADA formula.
I know actually. It does really well. I looked it up, and I see my face in your face. Yeah. So
that strategy works. So
there you go. I guess so.
That is a smart way of applying it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that would be a natural segue into YouTube strategy. We got a few more minutes over here. So y'all do some awesome videos on Siege Media, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. It's actually really good. I almost actually can't believe your channel isn't bigger. I'm always surprised at the quality. and one of my friends who is an SEO person, one of those like unnamed, killing it, but like no one knows who he is kind of people. We always talk about your channel, and we're just like, I don't know why this doesn't have more subscribers. This is some good stuff. Like you'll have Pep Laja from CXL on there, and like you have pretty good conversations. You have a lot of your own people telling like exactly how their job is done, which is like pretty rare. Is the amount of time you spend on making these YouTube videos, because y'all do like some high quality production.
Thank you.
Is it worth it?
I think so. I mean, in terms, sometimes it's hard to measure, but you see it in the lead requests. Like we're growing pretty nicely. If you think about the fact we could only have 50 viewers on a video, one of those is a qualified buyer that we really speak to with a targeted message. They could spend lifetime $300,000 with us.
Wow.
So just that ROI equation is very clear. I do sometimes think that, and we probably could go deeper in terms of like growing the channel. But I kind of touched on one of the things I thought of when I saw that question on what you're going to bring up. Is I do think with some things is, we could have like very like markety thumbnails and titles and stuff like that. But at the same time, I would feel hurt inside of me to do that as a marketer, marketing to marketers. And there's probably a middle ground where we could grow our channel more by not doing that. But it is weird that as a marketer, marketing to marketers, you can't do A+ marketing or you're doing more like F marketing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Depending on the audience set. So in some ways, I think our channel could be bigger, but I don't hate where we are, and I know it's driving ROI.
But like the few thousand subscribers you have are probably extraordinarily high quality. You probably have like Rand Fishkin subscribed to you.
Yeah, B2B marketers who are purchase decision makers.
Well, that's what there's always like this bit of cognitive dissonance with your channel, because I've mentioned your channel to a couple of people. I'm like, oh, I subscribe, and it's like a high level person, but then some nobody doesn't know who you are, even if they're sort of interested in SEO. So maybe that's a pretty genius thing. Your audience is very high quality.
Hopefully, yes.
Nice.
If you're in our audience, you are high quality.
Oh, well, I'm subscribed to you.
There you go.
So that kind of answers my question about videos. I mean, I think it is like one of those things where, one person can have that huge LTV.
And you could turn them off by doing the wrong strategy. So it is worth
7
considering
SEO strategies for.
I do. You see that? I think there's this natural for anyone in whatever their market is, you feel like you need to have 100,000 subscribers, but it's all industry specific. It's okay.
I don't know if one way is better or another, because I know like someone like Neil Patel, I think Brian Dean, they do the more generalized SEO videos that are pretty in depth, but also kind of for newbies. So like that's also one way to do it. I don't know if there's any better way or not. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's multiple ways for sure.
Yeah. And last couple of questions. Local SEO. This is a big one because we get a lot of people that have physical stores. And of course, right now, with what's going on in the world, like everyone's going online. And they'll be like a plumber or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I looked up the search terms. Apparently, how to become a plumber is a big term. Should I write an article on that? And I'm like, okay, brand new newbie to the internet. Like, one, it's unlikely you're going to rank for that really quick. Two, I'm not sure you have like total amount of expertise for it. And three, really what they're looking for is just dominating the local results. Is that something y'all delve in, or you're all more?
Oh, we have a few clients who do local, normally like more national local, to be honest. My quick take on that, I don't know if the query how to become a plumber, but there's some things like, say, mortgage calculator in your local mortgage agent or something like that. You're never going to rank for mortgage calculator, but there is a general user need for things like that on your website that you can consider as well. As like, you probably should still have that as a general content play, even locally. So that's a consideration outside of your ability to rank it for it.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it with restaurants and small little shops and stuff like that. And honestly, with local SEO, it's almost like a whole different game. It's more like a Yelp index rather than a Google search result, because all they do is if they update the hours on the thing, they put in proper title, their proper address, their phone numbers, a couple of pictures, that always goes to help, and get a couple of friends to leave reviews. That's pretty much all you really need to kind of dominate some of those local listings. You don't have to do too much more than that.
Yeah, just get review volume and
constantly update your
reviews
every month. Just make sure your hours and stuff are updated. It's actually pretty interesting. I think we're towards the end of our time here, but let's see. What do you think like the future of SEO is? Is it going to change at all? Have you seen any massive changes since when you started versus now? Or
I think one of the things you touched on at the very beginning is increasingly the case is just the ladder effect of quality. It's like harder and harder. The time to ROI is going to get longer and longer as it gets more competitive. And it'll feel like I can throw up an article on what is copywriting and rank tomorrow, but the time to get there is going to be long, just really far out. So I don't think fundamentally how you do it will change much. It'll just be the quality barrier is higher than ever. Every year that passes. It's because increasingly someone sees someone ranking 1, they say, I have to be better than that person. They do it better. Next month, someone else has got to beat that person. And then the race continues. And well, that's good for your company too. Yeah. I mean, one of our values as a company is strive to be better. And that's fundamentally, I think we have to do that to strive.
Nice. Where can people find you? And y'all have any products that tell people about SEO and all that stuff, or what?
Yeah, we have, check out our YouTube channel, subscribe.
I'll link that,
We do have a content marketing course, which we use to train our own team. We did it to scratch our own itch, so check that out. But find us on Twitter, me on Twitter, and happy to share all of our dirty secrets there.
Cool. And if anyone's going to ask me about an SEO recommendation, it's you. It's pretty much Siege Media. That's the only company I recommend that I have like experience with that actually does. Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks.
So awesome. Ross Hudgens, thanks everyone. This has been Copywriting Course. I hope you learned something interesting. I thought this was a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Tried to pack it into about an hour. So thanks, Ross Hudgens, and check out his stuff. And we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.